Welcome to the latest edition of All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino, and we are pleased to be joined by Bryan Helmer from the Hershey Bears, a former teammate of Karl Alzner. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations on 3,000 wins, the first AHL franchise to ever get to that mark, and I think the fifth in hockey history, right?
It is. First of all, thanks for having me on for this. It's pretty special when you get to spend some time with Karl, with Alzy here and stuff like that. So it's pretty special for our organization to reach a milestone like that. You know, it's like you said, there's only, I think, 5 pro sports hockey teams that have did it. So to be a part of that and to be the first one in the American Hockey League is pretty special.
Yeah, and you also got a chance to play with Karl. And before we get to some Capitals topics, and I know Karl has questions, do you have a Karl Alzner story? Because I always ask people this, and it always seems like he's such a squeaky clean guy and all of this. But do you have a favorite memory or story of playing with Karl?
Yeah, I've got a few, but the one that really sticks out to me is we had an apartment crawl. Remember this, Alzy? Yeah. And you know, it was where everybody would start at one spot and then you would have a couple of drinks and a shot and you move on to the next person's place. And we weren't sure what Alzy was going to do, if he was going to participate or how it was going to, you know, all unfold. But when we got there, it was pretty impressive. He was Amsterdam, right? Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
And he had it decked out. It was pretty impressive. I think he had black garbage bags all over the place. He had the red light. It was very impressive. So we were pretty fired up with that one.
It was funny because I think I may have just turned 21 that year, and then Mandy was out with me, so she was 18. She would have just maybe been turning 19. So she was underage, so we couldn't really go out and do a whole lot. Like all the guys would go out and go to Shakey's after games and to Harrisburg and stuff like that. And whenever Mandy was in town, like we couldn't do it because we didn't have fake IDs. And so when the apartment crawl was happening, we were like, this is perfect. Like, this is up our alley. It's kind of a controlled area. So yeah, Helms is right. It was black tablecloths. We got a huge roll of black tablecloths and it was like wallpaper on everything. It was so much fun. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I was going to ask you one of my favorite memories, and I can't remember if you were involved in this, but well, I can't remember if it was your house too. There was some guys always wrestled, right? If you do remember what happened during that apartment crawl.
Yeah, so it was at my place. And again, I think it was Jodry and Boyd Kane that got wrestling. And next thing you know, I think everyone got involved and the pileup was so big. I think it was close to the ceiling and it was probably a 8-9 foot ceiling. So, you know, it was, that was the type of team we were. It was great. That I think out of my career, I think that was one of the best things we ever did as a team.
Yeah. And it was so funny. Like the guys would just start wrestling like out of nowhere. And I think a cup fell or a beer bottle fell on one of the guys and cut him. I think it was Giroux. I don't remember for sure, but it was just one of those things that you just never knew what to expect with the team. It was so funny. And it's one of the things when I look back now, and it sucks because at the time, as a young guy too, you're like, I just want to get to the next level, right? Everything I can do to get to that next level. And then it was over. And then I play a couple of years in the next level. I'm like, holy smokes. Like, it's great to be in the NHL, but it is nowhere near as fun as the times that you have in the American League with the guys, especially in Hershey too. Cause like everyone lives at the reserve. Everyone's so tight. You do everything together. And I mean, I'm curious if it's still like that. Cause I know the area has changed a little bit. I was just there a couple of weekends ago. And things have changed, but do you still find that the team's pretty tight?
They are. Also, guys still live either in the reserves or at the gardens. You know, there's a few guys have sprinkled away from that, but most of the guys do live there, and they're pretty close. And now the way everything's going with the cell phones and video cameras, guys basically stay in their houses or have parties within each other, and you know, it's that's just the way the times are. But the teams that have been here in the past have always been close, and they still are. So.
Yeah, and so we've got a couple guys with the Caps now who've recently come through your program. Ryan is now the Vice President of Hockey Operations. Is that your title?
Yes, yeah.
So now running the show with Hershey. And so Connor McMichael came through, Martin Faravari came through there. I'm curious just kind of what you saw in those two guys and kind of the experience they got in Hershey and kind of what it's done for them at this next level.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Mike's first. You know, he comes into a situation that I think helped him so much. Not going back to junior, coming to the American League. Yep. You know, Matt Molson took him under his wing. You know, just taught him how to be a pro, and Spencer Carberry worked hard with him all year long, and because you're coming out of junior, you're the big dog in junior. You tend to do some you get into those bad habits that you can get away with in junior, but once you become a pro, you can't. And he had a lot of holes in his defensive end and his intensity, and with those two guys alone, just helped him out incredible. And he really thrived last year. He was our top goal scorer along with Matt Molson. They were pushing each other, especially towards the end. They were kind of chirping each other before every game. So who's going to take over? I'm going to score. No, you're not. So they went back and forth. But just the relationship they had alone, I'm sure if you ask Mike, that he probably grew a lot just having Matt Molson in the dressing room and being around him every day. And then Marty, he could just tell he was going to go to the next level. His skating is, probably one of the better skaters I've seen in a long time, especially as a defenseman. And he was so mature for his age, and he just kept getting better and better. And, probably last year, he probably should have maybe been up in Washington the whole year too, but you know what, I think, you keep him down here for that extra time, it's only going to make the kid a better player. And he's doing a heck of a job this year.
Did you see that goal he scored last night?
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty nice.
He is.
Karl, I don't think you could score a goal like that.
Oh no, I for sure couldn't score a goal like that. However, I did score my best goal of my career in Hershey though. So I got a couple okay ones, but nothing. I would never challenge a guy one-on-one. That was not something I like to do. I'd like to be challenged one-on-one, but I'd rather dump it in and try and beat someone in the corner. So that's not for me. But I got a question, Helms, because I dealt with this when I was in Laval just recently, where the balance between, veteran players that they've had an entire career there, and they're still trying to either, get a shot in the NHL or, get a bigger payday or kind of set themselves up to potentially go to Europe, versus the young guys who have been drafted, who the Caps obviously want to bring up and mold. And do you notice, obviously you need good guys like Matt Molson and stuff like that are going to kind of nurture those players, but do you find there's struggles every now and then? Like I didn't know it, it wasn't outward when I was in Hershey that there was struggles. Maybe some of the older guys felt that way about me and Carly and Perot and those guys, but do you ever find that you're seeing that, and how do you go about it? Like, are you getting pulled from the Caps to do one thing, but you guys want to do something else to win, in the American League? How does that work?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Elsie. Working with Chris Patrick and Jason Fitzsimmons, we've got a great bond, and they realize that we have to win down here, and they want their young guys to come up through a winning atmosphere. And you just look at when they won the Stanley Cup in 2018, how many guys came through, Hershey, and the farther we go in the playoffs, the better it is. And I always talk to Chris Patrick about this, and you get to the first round in the playoffs down here, maybe it feels like a little bit of a regular season game in the NHL. And as you get, going and you get into the finals, now maybe that feels like an NHL playoff game. So we want to make sure that we surround these young guys with good veteran players, but these veterans have to come in here and realize that, they're towards the end of the career. They're going to be good pros. They're going to teach these young guys how to be pros, and they want to win. And, that's the type of people we try to bring in here. And, we did a great job. And, going back to the 2018, Travis Boyd went to the finals in 2016, Nathan Walker, those two guys get inserted in the Pittsburgh series and do a heck of a job. So, it's been like in Hershey for a while that you need to have good veteran players, and it'll go a long ways with your young prospects, and Washington and myself believe in that. And we have a great relationship. So it's been working so far, and I think it's going to keep going that way.
Who do you got an eye on right now? Let us know who is really kind of catching your eye right now.
With here.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a couple guys, obviously Protas is, he's a young kid. I keep telling myself this kid's, 21 years old. He's an 01. He's the same age as my son, Kate, and you expect him to perform at a high level every night, but it doesn't happen sometimes. And, and then you got a guy like Leeson, who's, had some games up in the NHL that came down, and he was getting his chances, just wasn't scoring, but now he's kind of getting his groove going. So those two guys too. And, you got some guys on the back end with, Tobias Geiser has grown a lot. And at the start of the year, you know, he came in and he was playing really well. And then he ended up getting COVID, kind of slipped a bit when he came back, but now he's got his game back, you know, and he's the type of guy to keep an eye on. Alexiev, you know, I think he's got some work to do. Could he use maybe a year or two, but still down here? Yeah. But he could be a guy that fits in your 5th, 6th defenseman, kills penalties. He eats block shots, eats pucks like you used to do. Also, he reminds me of you when he's killing penalties. It's pretty impressive to get down there and face those shots. I still don't know how you did it. But you know, he's something that, you know, he's got to work on his foot speed but I think, again, he's another young guy. We keep thinking these guys should be making these steps, but they're young. And, you know, I think Brian McClellan and you know, Chris Patrick want these guys to develop so they can help you guys down the road.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we've seen Alexi Protas up here already in the NHL for an extended period of time this season. Tarek El-Bashir last night asked me, Brian, to ask you about your son, because apparently they were drafted like 3 picks apart a couple of years ago. How's Cade doing? Where is he playing now?
Yeah, so he spent the year in the NCDC for the Boston Advantage, had a really good year, led his team in goal scoring and points. He's now trying to go to school for hockey. He's got a few D3 schools after him.
Awesome.
But would he love to hopefully get a D1 somewhere out in the next couple months? Absolutely. But you know, we did a couple tours. He toured Brockport, which is just outside of Rochester, New York, and really liked the coach there. So he's got a lot of irons in the fire. So we'll see how this all unfolds. So.
Were you guys ever D partners in Hershey or in Washington?
Well, I remember we were in the finals against Winnipeg. We were partners, so we played on and off, especially our first year together. Right?
Yeah. I feel like we kind of everyone would rotate depending on what was going on with the game. But I've said this, Helms, and it's so frustrating to me because I have so many great memories of the time in Texas winning that one. And then in the Winnipeg one, I mean, I don't even know if you remember this, but I got hurt at that playoffs. I had a concussion, and I can't tell you anything that happened in that final game. Oh. I have like maybe a 5-second window of seeing Mandy on the ice and one of our friends that was at the game. Otherwise, I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in that series, and it's so frustrating because, like, just like you said, how tight the team was. Like I'm sure it was a great time, but I don't know what happened, and I'm so upset about it.
Well, it was a good time, and I remember you're my partner, and you basically carried me. So thanks a lot.
That's funny. Okay, so that's perfect lead into this. I wanted to say this was such a good career lesson and life lesson for me that you gave me and Carly. And I don't know if it hit Carly the same way that it hit me, but it did. And you may not remember, but we were in Adirondack for a game, and Adirondack was like just an interesting place to play. And we were down by 1. I think it was about 3.5 minutes left. And I remember Frenchie, I think it was Frenchie. He pretty much said to me and Carly, he's like, hey, like go do something, like go try and get this goal. And so we're like, okay. So we stayed out there for if 3.5 minutes left in the game. We were out there for probably 2:45 of it. And I was dog tired. I know Carly was tired too. We didn't end up scoring, and we get in the room after. And I don't know, do you remember this, Helms, at all?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And you ripped me and Carly. You essentially, with all the extra words in there, you pretty much just said, you know, we have other guys on this team that can score also. You don't need to stay out there the whole time. And I remember just sitting there thinking, like, holy smokes, like, he's right. Like, this was so stupid and selfish. Regardless of what the coach said, you're right. Like, there's other guys that can play and that have energy to play. And I remember it went on like my entire career. I thought of that. So I appreciate that. I was very lucky to have someone like you to be able to say that, because a lot of guys would just say that behind someone's, behind the back after to the rest of the guys. And that's so invaluable to me. So I've always wanted to thank you for it. I don't think I've had that chance, but I mean, it goes a long way, having that. And I don't think we have that in the game that much anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I do remember that time, and, obviously you guys being younger, and I get it. You guys were good, and when you extend your shifts like that and to see how tired you were and stuff like that. And again, we were all competitive. Everybody wants to win and stuff, and it was just, I came up as a young guy. I had Kevin Dean in Albany, and he taught me lots of lessons when I was younger too. And in time you spend on the ice and the length of your shifts and that sort of stuff. So that was just one little thing. I'm glad it stuck with you. And, but again, that's how close we were as a team, right? You could do that sort of stuff. And I knew that you and Carly could take that sort of stuff. So, there's certain guys that you probably couldn't do that to, because they would fold up tent and take their puck and leave. But I knew that you two could handle that sort of stuff. So
yeah, and I want you to pass this note on to Pam, because Mandy has said it for years. She's like, I wish that I'm like Pam when I'm older, because still like to have fun with the team, was always around and having a good time. And I feel like we tried to do that as we got older. I didn't last as long as you did playing pro hockey, but please pass that message on, that Mandy was always very envious of what you guys did as a couple for the team. So it was, that's what every player is looking for, is someone to mold the young guys. But I want to bring up this because I remember as a young guy, like there were so many times where I was just scared shitless out there, because some of these guys, you got Yablonski, you got Morasti, these guys just cruising around looking for something with just looking scary. Is there anybody that you can think of, or a couple guys that were just scary tough being out on the ice in the American League?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started, or when I first started back in like the early 90s, there was guys like that on every team, like 3 or 4 guys like that. But the one thing is, Aussie, is those guys are honest. Like if you messed up, you'd have to answer the bell. But if you just played hard, they wouldn't bug you. And they would fight each other. And, if the game got out of hand, you would throw your tough guys out. They would have their tough guys out, and so it was always, they would fight each other, but they'd keep, they would keep you honest. If you did something to one of their players, you knew that they were going to tap you on the shoulder and you'd have to answer the bell. So there was a lot of kind of scary guys back when I played, but like Frank Bialowas, they call him the animal.
God, yeah, the animal. Yeah. Back
So,
in the old Spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. There's guys like that, and guys that, have huge hands. Like I love a guy like Dylan McGrath on our team. He's a type of old school, tough guy, but he can play the game. And he when he's on the ice, it's amazing how he just calms everything down. And, he has that presence, and it's almost like a bit of old school. And that was one guy that, since I've taken this position, I wanted a guy like that, because I think he makes a difference on your team. He makes guys on your team bigger, and he controls everything out there. And like I remember this year we were playing Belleville, and in the first period, Mac did a slash on the guy, and because it's Dylan McGrath, ends up getting kicked out of the game. And all of a sudden, Belleville starts to get a little bit bigger and kind of takes advantage of some of our players, and if he's out there, that doesn't happen. So, I think it's important to have guys like that in your team.
Yeah, it's funny it's a good way to look at it too, how you just said that, it makes other guys bigger. But if you're a player and you're going out there running around and taking liberties on people, and then, maybe you're not the tough guy or the fighter, but now your team's fighter has to fight their team's fighter, you screwed up as the chirpy, young guy, because now I've made my guy fight when maybe he wouldn't have fought that night, so it just gives you a layer of responsibility, which I'm with you. Like, I feel like every team still needs to have that. Like, Wino, we talked about it with Beegs the other day, and in Arizona. Like, you saw that, Helms? I'm sure, right? Like Anaheim doesn't have that guy anymore, and now Beegs goes and pumps Terry, and there's no one to step in. So it's a good example. You don't need to have someone out there that can't skate and play the game, but you need toughness on a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and Brian, it's not like it's the Charlestown Chiefs. We're not talking about that style, but like the AHL still has a little bit of that old school. How have you seen kind of AHL hockey evolve from kind of your playing days to now? Because you do have fewer of those enforcers, but you still have some of that same mentality.
Yeah, I mean, the game has got so much faster. It's amazing. Like, just I've been retired almost 10 years now, but just the skill of these young guys, they're not afraid to try anything. I know, when we played Aussie, if you put it through your legs, guys would be chirping you. Now you see it almost once or twice a game, and you know, you got this Michigan, you know, goal, and you know, if back in the day, if you even tried that, guys would probably break your hand. You know, it's just, but these guys can do it, and it's impressive. It's fun to watch, you know, and but you're right. It's the one thing I am noticing, it's down here in the American League and the NHL too, is you see scrums now, everyone keeps their gloves on, which is, it's kind of funny. But you know, back in the day, if there's a scrum, everyone dropped their gloves, you would pair off. You might not throw any punches, but at least you'd hold on to the guy. Now it's just funny to me that everyone just keeps their gloves on and holds on that way. And I really don't understand it, but that's the way it is. And you know, I don't think fighting will ever go away. I hope it doesn't. No. I think it has to be part of the game. I think it's a competitive sport, you know, and it's you get worked up and certain things happen and you take, you know, usually two guys can just drop their gloves and get it over with and go to the penalty box and then get on with the game. So I think it'll always be there. I'm an old school kind of guy. I like seeing that sort of stuff. There's certain times when I'm standing up in my suite and guys are, you know, maybe running one of our guys and they don't do anything back. I get a little upset. I'm like, you know, hit them back, you know, cross check, and, you know, especially in front of the net. You know, that was fun back in the day. You'd give it to the guy in front of the net. He'd give it back to you. You get a little, you know, then the next time the guy came in, he knew that you were going to do the same thing. You don't see that. It's starting to, that stuff's starting to go away the game. But again, I think the game's exciting. It's fast. It's got a lot of skill. So it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, with the cross-checking rule, right? You can't do anything. That was, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have been able to play in the playoffs, because that's like, I was always so excited for the playoffs. I'm like, yes, this is when I get to go up 5% flex on my stick, so I can really start giving it to guys. Or Tom Pody, he would have the squared off stick so that his cross checks meant a little more every time you let one go. So it's unfortunate, but you're right though. And like you said, even about trying, like guys aren't afraid to try stuff. I was watching the highlights from the games last night, and it's Terry again. I mean, sorry to pick on the guy, but he tries to beat Huberto one-on-one in overtime inside his own blue line. Next thing you know, his pocket gets picked and the game's over. It's like, it just, they don't have fear. And I don't know if it's because there's no repercussion, or not no, but less repercussions, you know, it's like a little bit more freedom to try these things, a little longer leash, but it's just, I mean, I couldn't do it. Like I said earlier, I dumped the puck in because I'm not turning that thing over. I'd rather ice it, you know. I remember, this is funny. Do you remember we had the drill? I think Frenchie would do it. You do that, Frenchie or Woody, but we would practice our dumps and we'd try and ice it off the glass without getting all the way down the rink. I'm like, this is sweet. How many teams do that anymore?
None.
None.
Yeah, it's gone away.
Oh, it's too bad. It was a skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, there's not a whole lot more skilled teams over the history of AHL hockey in the Hershey Bears. As we're sitting here talking, 7 is the magic number to clinch a playoff spot in the Calder Cup playoffs. And now for Karl's favorite portion of the show, Karl's stupid questions.
All right, so I've given Helms the rundown of what's going on. So he's a first timer, hasn't really seen what happened. So hopefully we can stump him a little bit. And my questions here are, half of them are hockey related. Normally they're not, but since you played for so long, I kind of wanted to get your opinion on some things. So the first one is, if you could have the best in the league of any one of these skills, which one would it be? Would it be vision and passing? Would it be hands, shot, or speed?
Speed for sure.
Speed.
The way the game is now, you can fly out there. You could probably just put the puck between your legs and just jump in the net or something when you blow by everybody. It doesn't matter if you have the hands or anything like that. So I'd say speed.
So you'd be Luis Mendoza.
Yeah, exactly.
Ice Cheetah, Jason Chimera.
Yes, exactly. Speed. Okay, I like it. Okay, so would you rather have played five years in the NHL and win a Stanley Cup, or 15 years in the NHL and have a, let's say, above average career, but no Stanley Cup, no playoff experience?
Oh, Stanley Cup for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's why we play the game, right? So it's to win a championship would have been it would have been special, you know, to especially win the Stanley Cup. But I'll take a few Calder Cups too. That's pretty sweet.
Absolutely. You know what's funny? Actually, I think it was McMichael that his answer was really great. I asked him that same question, and I think he said 15 years because he couldn't imagine only playing hockey for 5 years. And I'm like, that's actually a really good way to look at it, because I would be at first, I'd think, yeah, I mean, you got to win. That's what we do. But I'm like, yeah, it's a good point. You play 5 years and you're done.
Yeah.
And that's it. So it was a good point, but I'm with you, Helms, on that. Okay. So I've thought of this a lot recently, especially. In your opinion, what's the best thing about retirement from hockey? Is it the mental break, the physical break, or less time on the bus, less travel?
Well, it's funny you say the travel, because we just got caught in Charlotte, so I had about a 7-hour ride from Charlotte to Hershey. So, but for me, it's obviously the bus rides, and people always ask me, like, how did you do the bus rides for so long and stuff like that? But I enjoy it. I enjoy the bus rides. It's now, especially, you got your phone, you can put music on or movies and stuff like that. So I would do the bus.
Perfect. Okay. These are my favorite types of questions to ask right here. What's your favorite breakfast food?
Eggs and bacon.
Eggs and bacon. Okay.
How do you like your eggs?
Bacon, hash browns, and rye toast.
Rye toast.
How do you like your eggs? This is another
over easy.
Oh, there we go. We just talked about that.
Yes, absolutely.
Over easy eggs. And when you have scrambled eggs, do you put ketchup on them?
Yeah, always ketchup on everything.
Ketchup on everything. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Are you a ketchup and eggs guy, Karl?
I used to be, yeah. When we used to eat eggs, I'd always go scrambled. Well, if I was just going eggs, then yeah, for sure scrambled with ketchup. And then I got into like the over easy, over medium type thing with toast. But those were the days. Okay, so I was at the game yesterday and I thought it was unbelievable. I'm so happy they did this. But the guys have goal songs now, right? And Irwin's was "I Believe in Miracles," which was
unbelievable.
So funny. But what would your goal song be, Helms?
Oh man.
Would you go something funny, something like rock and roll?
I would try something funny for sure. Like, I'm too sexy. I'm too sexy for this shirt.
That's hilarious. That was Hathaway had the Night at the Roxbury song, and it was like this, whatever that was, 6th goal of the night. And they did a close up on him, and you could tell he wanted to so bad. He's looking up, and then sure enough, there he starts giving it to us. And I don't think enough people realized what he was doing, but
that's the one thing about the game today is you see more personality, right, with social media and that sort of stuff. And they, the guys do so much more on the jumbotron and stuff like that. So it's pretty neat to see the different personalities come out in these guys.
Yeah, branding, man. They're all prepping themselves for, I don't know if they're thinking about it now, but prepping themselves for post hockey. And that's one thing I never did. I didn't do a good job at that social media game. So we're working on it. See if we can get there one day.
I still don't have any social media.
All right. Last question is, what's your guilty pleasure?
Beer and pizza.
Beer and pizza.
Great answer.
Too much beer too.
That's the well-balanced meal after a game on the bus right there.
Absolutely.
Look, this is the podcast of beer, pizza, and the Bell Center hot dogs.
Yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
That's the one thing when you go to Montreal, I always look forward to that stuff.
Yeah, that's the one good thing about that place. Okay, so that's all 6. Let me just quickly tally these up here. Speed was good. 5 years. I'm with you on that. Travel, over easy, which I'm also with you on, and beer and pizza. Helms, pretty good effort. Let's punch that in. That brings you to 143 points.
Yes. Woohoo!
Pretty solid. That brings you for sure top 10. I'd have to double check exactly, but
We got to do a leaderboard at some point here, Karl.
we're gonna do a board. Yeah.
Next time you and I do this in person, we're gonna like put this in a spreadsheet or something and figure this out.
Perfect.
Love it.
I love it. Thanks, Helms. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
And Bryan, thanks very much for joining us on All Caps.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate having me on here. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Everybody else, we'll talk to you next week while the Capitals are on their longest road trip of the season. We'll talk to you next time on All Caps. This is AP hockey writer Steve Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner, the host of the All Caps podcast on Ampire Media.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody that's tuning in to the All's Caps podcast on the Ampire Media YouTube channel. We're going to try and get as much going as we can.
We love doing the video stuff. I hope you also get a chance to listen to the John Keim report about the Washington Commanders. We're going to have John on at some point and do some cross promotion, but please stay tuned to everything that we have on Ampire Media, on YouTube, and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.